Okay, I guess it's recording. So welcome to the second Zoom conference. As you can tell, I'm on location because they're doing a lot of construction here in Jackson, Tennessee, and I couldn't make it back to time before 6 o'clock because traffic was backed up for 18 years. So please mute your microphone, okay? If you haven't muted your microphone, please do so. Okay. So this week, please mute your microphones, please. Somebody's got a microphone open, please check and mute, okay? Please mute your mic. It's on the left, yes. Okay, so this week we're going to be starting the understanding phase of statistics. So we got through the preliminary review stuff, basically weeks 1 through 4. Week 4 we got into a little bit of statistics. Week 5, 6, and 7 we're being stat mode, full stat mode. Starting out with probability, which is one of those areas that is very difficult to understand. So you're going to spend a lot of time looking at the videos and reading the chapters and everything because there's a lot of different terminology we have to be looking at. So this is where the study groups come in. So please talk to one another. Work yourself through this. There are 10 questions on the template. So please do not use what's on the assignment because that was not changed. The template is what's going to be graded. So if you turn in an assignment and missing these 3 questions, that's an automatic C no matter what, okay? Because I've tried to explain it over and over and over again. I'm trying to get these assignments changed, and it takes a while to do it. But the template is the correct assignment. There are 10 questions, and they're worth 10 points apiece, all right? So please make sure you talk these things through with your study group. The last question, I believe, deals with a combination. Please make sure you carry it out to the final answer. There are several, and I'll probably get some this term as well. There are several that will turn it in, and it's not fully divided out. So please make sure you follow the formula with all the funky little factorials in there, and come up with a reasonable combination, okay? So the first section, I think it was 5 or 6 questions, and they pretty much follow the M&M's assignment in the video and also in the chapter. Then you have the 3, the sampling without replacement questions. Please make sure you carry those to 4 decimal points. Everything else is 2, okay? That's pretty much it on the probability side. This is the beginning of the understanding of stats. In 6, you're going to be looking at dealing with transformation of values. So you're going to be looking at z-scores and how it forms on the normal distribution. How you're going to the area beyond and the area between the mean and the z and the area beyond. You're going to find out that the entire area under a z-normal distribution equals 1. So you have on either side, the positive side, you have 0.5, and on the negative side, you have 0.5 because the total must equal 1. And from that, you're going to learn how to transform a z-score into a t-score, which is used by businesses. And you're going to learn to transform a z-score into a Stanine score. So for educators, you use Stanines virtually all the time on state tests. Yes, no, puppy dog heads. They still use those Stanines? Yes, somebody shake your head. So if you're in education, you still use Stanines? Okay. So you're going to find out how the Stanine is actually calculated and how it's put together. In week 6, there's going to be very specific directions on how to do this. You never round a z-score to a whole number. So I'll tell you that now, but it's going to be, it'll tell you that in the preview announcement. I'll tell you that in the checklist. Do not round the Stanine score to a whole number. And the reason being is that when you have a z-score, it's actually a standard deviation unit. So when you transform a raw score into a standard deviation unit, it's going to fall on that standard normal distribution of -3 to +3. Okay? When you transform a z-score to a t-score, it's going to have a little bit different distribution. It's going to be 20 to 80. And 20 lines up with -3, and 80 lines up with +3, and everything in between. And Stanine has a range of 1 to 9, and it's going to fall within a certain range on the standard normal distribution. So the rule is when you transform a score, it does not alter its position on the standard normal distribution. Okay, so if I have a z-score of 2, that's going to translate when I do the formula. It's going to transfer itself into a t-score of 70 because they'll line up, and it'll transform itself into a Stanine score of 7, and so they'll all line up. Now, if you have fractions in there, if you have a Stanine or a 2.5 or a 75, and you round the Stanine to 2, it's going to change its position. So don't alter it. You can have a Stanine of 2.5, okay? You can have a Stanine of 7.5. You can have a Stanine of 11, but it falls outside in the outlier range. So there's very specific things that you are going to be given as far as directions. Inevitably, I'll have someone, because in education they round all Stanines to a whole number to make it easier to understand, but in stats, that's not the way it works, okay? So you have to get it out of your brain cells. If you get a decimal for a Stanine, that's what you put down. You don't round it to a whole number, okay? There are certain procedures and certain processes that are going to be given in week 6. And those are the things that you're going to have to follow the directions. Otherwise, all your scores are going to be off, okay? And I give you a formula for Excel on how to utilize, once you do one cell, all you have to do is, once you punch the formula in, all you have to do is drag, and you know, they're all there. So it's not as bad as you think, but I would check about every 10th one by hand to make sure you come up with the right answer, okay? The correct answer, just a spot check. So that's week 6. Week 7, you're going to get into actual hypothesis analysis. You're going to learn how to formulate a null and an alternative hypothesis. And they're for a one-tail test and a two-tail test. Okay, here we go, stat these, okay? Two-tail test, if you've read ahead or if you kind of looked ahead, means there's no difference. It's equal, not equal. In a one-tail test, you're not concerned about the difference, but the direction of that difference. So it'd be higher than, lower than, greater than, less than, and it comes out with a different symbol. The direction in a one-tail test, the direction of interest follows the alternative hypothesis. So in a null hypothesis, it's always equal, no difference, okay? So if I'm looking at boys' math scores are going to be significantly lower than girls' math scores, that's a direction. Lower is the arrow that goes to the left, okay? So HO would be U is less than whatever it is, okay? The null hypothesis will be equal, but then you have to change it to make it greater than or equal to cover all mathematical possibilities. So I'm kind of giving you hints and ideas as we go through this to let you know that we're in an understanding mode and how you set up a one-tail test and a two-tail test hypothesis. Week 8, we're going to be in actual application. So we'll be doing an actual statistical test on a one-sample z-test, and the z-test is different from a z-score, okay? using a known standard deviation and an unknown standard deviation. Week 9, we're going to be doing a statistical test on correlations. A little bit different as we go all the way through this. So I'll probably have a Zoom conference in week 8 to set the stage for all of this. But weeks 5, 6, and 7 is the understanding. You got to build the foundation of understanding what stats is all about before you can actually apply it. So that's why when I designed the course, I had kind of everybody getting into the use of numbers and putting it together. Week 4, we kind of used a little stats in there with the mean, median, and mode, and group means and group modes and all sorts of funky stuff. But week 5 is actually the beginning of understanding, which is the probability. So those are things that you're going to need to prepare yourself for. It may take a little more time than your usual because, like I say, when you start understanding things that you're not used to, it's going to take a little more time in order for it to sink in, especially when you're talking stat-me's. These are totally different terms that we're going to be using. When you get into the you can call it the multiplicative or the multiplicative. I don't know, either one. But that format is how the lottery is set up. Okay, that's why nobody ever wins. Right. So they have the additive law, the multiplicative law. Then you have a thing called an overlap. Okay, and you have 2 mutually unexclusive events. When you do the additive and the multiplicative, you're going to have mutually exclusive events. Okay. But when you get into the additive law, you're going to have mutually unexclusive events, you're going to have this overlap. You're going to have circles that are going to overlap. And so things are going to be counted twice. So you have to understand that probability goes from 0 to 1. And that should be your first clue. If you do a calculation, you come up with 9 or 25 or 680, you know something screwy because probability only goes from 0 to 1. Okay? So if you calculate something and it goes above 1, it's not correct. So you either miscalculated it or you're in the additive law of mutually unexclusive events, which means that you have to subtract out the overlap. Okay? So it means that event has been counted twice. All right. So for example, when I was in school, they wanted to know how many people were in fraternities. So you had social fraternity and you had volunteer fraternity or whatever they called it. And so what they counted was I was in a social fraternity and I was also in the volunteer fraternity, but I was counted twice. So they just wanted to know how many people were in a fraternity. So those that were counted twice had to be subtracted out, okay, to make the probability come out more accurate. Otherwise, you're counting people over and over and over and over again within that formula. So, be prepared, on this because there's a lot of different terms that can sneak up on you. Don't feel bad. I don't want you to feel bad if at the end you're missing 4 or 5. I mean, everybody's doing well. This is the part where people start. Some people do extremely well because they're in a group and they can talk things through, and then some people that it just doesn't click. But yet there are enough points. That's why I say you gain all your points, as many points as you can in the first 4 weeks, because you get into the understanding phase, you start losing them.
She wasn't in anything, but talking about last year.
Mute microphones. Please mute your microphones. Okay, thank you. So,
pretty much.
Please.
Just based off of how he was talking, he pretty much came up with Phil's agenda.
I wish I knew how to mute everybody's mic because I would do it.
Doc, it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. All right. So now let's train of thought. Let's see where I'm at. So in the probability phase, the biggest issue that comes through this is that they're not using the appropriate, given that's the big thing. People that have M&Ms, given that, you know, they're married. All right. So the married is the you know, that's the point that you go there, and you have to look at that column and that row rather than how many people have M&Ms in their household, because that's a total probability. But if you're putting a stipulation on it, how many people have M&Ms in their household, given that they are married, that's a stipulation. So it's a totally different column and row that you have to look at. Okay. So there are things that are thought processes in the probability aspect of it. In week 6, the biggest issue is they don't follow directions, and they wind up having all their calculations off, you know, throughout. Because I give you the first answer and I give you the second answer. And if what you're doing doesn't match the first and the second, you know, the first answer is the Z-score, and I tell you it's the final answer. So if it's the final answer, what do? All final answers are what? Rounded to 2 decimal points. Okay? So if it's 0.48969999 or 0.4, let's see, 0.461, yada, 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 it's rounded to 0.46. That's what you use in the formula, because I stipulate the Z-score is the final answer. So what happens is people use 97 numbers in there, and they wind up with all the calculations are off. So the reason it's considered a final answer is because it's not a continuation of a formula. This is an add-on. A T-score is an add-on. A9 is an add-on. So whatever you have for your final answer, you use for your Z-score in the formula. That's the biggest mistake that people make. And also rounding to a whole number in a Stanine, and not checking their work. You can have, for some reason, there are some that want to put all positive scores for a Z-score, and that doesn't work, because if a Z-score is a standard normal distribution, you can have positive and negative. So make sure you check. Make sure you have positive and negative Z-scores. The other thing is, people, if a range is from 20 to 80 and you calculate a T-score and it's 155 or it's negative 38, you know something's got to be wrong. All right. So you have to keep all these things in mind as you're doing these things and doing your you know, own quality check as you go through. Just like in a probability, if you have a probability that's 5, 8, 10, there's something seriously wrong there. But people will put down the answer and just kind of let it go. All right, so these are your quality checks. Week 7, the biggest thing is messing up or mixing the one-tail test, alternative hypothesis, and the null hypothesis. They switch it. And so read the chapter, follow the video. All directions go with the alternative hypothesis. Okay? So it's the alternative hypothesis will never have an equal sign. Never, 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 never. Even in a two-tailed test, it will have a not equal sign. So if you put an equal sign by the alternative hypothesis, you've got it backwards. Okay. The null hypothesis, the only time it will have anything other than an equal sign is after you set the alternative and you go back and you add the opposite direction to cover all mathematical possibilities. So, you know, please make sure that you do your own quality checks as you go through. You know, you've got to fall within the realm. And I'll stop at that. Let me kind of give you a review of the first 4 weeks. I haven't graded week 4 yet because I'm going to have to start grading them tomorrow night, simply because of the construction here and our internet is kind of screwy. but everything's going well. There, we do have some struggles, but for the most part, everybody's doing well. Please keep your discussion main posts above um, acceptable range. I mean, if you're only writing a paragraph and a half on a main post, I mean, it's not going to fall within that rubric. So please do not start slacking on your main post or your response post. That's where you get your points every week. I mean, you don't want to blow 50 points just because, I'm not going to write anything on the discussion post this time. So it's been kind of okay, but now we're past week 4, and of course the university starts looking at things like that, and definitely the accreditation aspect of it. So please keep your main posts up. Please make sure you put in assignments on time. Late posts, when it shows up late on mine, I've got no choice, but to deduct for 10%. So please make sure you keep up with everything as you go through this. But things are proceeding as expected, following the footsteps of the other classes. So 3 classes are moving forward. Now we're getting into understanding phase. So this is where the click point comes in. Sometimes it'll click very soon for a lot of people. Sometimes it'll take a while for it to click, and for some it may never click at all. It's just, and you struggle to try to get through. So I don't want you to get frustrated, because remember I gave you those 3 things. You need motivation. Anybody ever read those? Frustration, anxiety, and tension is what happens. And when you start getting, if you lose your motivation, you let frustration, anxiety, and tension take over, then it starts affecting your ability to think. Okay? Somebody's getting a smoothie here. Don't get frustrated. Again, I appreciate all the professional emails. They're that's very good. I'm trying. Hopefully, I can't answer some without giving you the answer. So please don't think that I'm trying to, avoid you. But you ask a question. If I give you the answer, then it'll give you the answer. If I answer your question appropriately, it'll actually give you the answer. So, and I try to explain that as well. I've had a few that sent me assignments when we look at. Please don't, as I said in the pre-class, number 1, you don't pre-grade at this level. And number 2, that's what the study groups are for. Okay. And number 2, I just don't have the time to pre-grade everybody's assignments so they can get 100. It's not what the doctorate's all about. Okay. So this is where you talk through. That's why this is the understanding phase of it. And again, that's why 2% of the populace in the country only have doctorates. Okay, because you can get to a frustrating point as we go through. I know ACE has. Taken some students in from another university, and I can certainly tell the difference in some cases as far as the level of writing and statistical application. But there's also some, within ACE that, need to work extremely hard in writing at the doctoral level. So the portfolio items that I give you are helpful to avoid a lot of rewrites as you go down the road. So the chairs should have the same information that you're going to be getting of what to avoid when writing a dissertation. And if you do that, it will really help the chair. It will really help you down the road. Okay. So with that, are there any questions I can help you with? Keep smiling. We're almost halfway home. It's good stuff. So nobody has any questions? Like I say, it's been really good. I mean, you guys have been really, really good. Keep your focus. You all are,
Thank you, doctor.
you know more than you think you know, but keep following directions, keep reading the preview announcements, keep doing the checklists, and everything will come out well. Promise you.
Thank you, doctor.
Nothing else?
Thank you.
Hey, great. Have
Thank you.
have a great evening.
Thank you very much.
Good luck, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, guys.
Thank you.
Good night. Good night.
Y'all